if they don't know how to start a conversation with their husband about money, what do you recommend?
I always recommend coming at it as a point of, I want to feel closer to you. Like, this is an intimacy play. I don't want anything to be between us. I'm starting to feel distance. I want full transparency. When we form the conversation like that, it's kind of hard to get mad, right?
Yeah.
Versus coming at the conversation saying, well, you're not telling me what you're spending money on. Suddenly it's very accusatory. That wall that was probably already there just got like this much thicker, right? So really coming at it from a heart place and like an aspiration for the relationship versus you did this, I did this, you didn't do that, I did. Right. Do you see what I'm saying? So no accusations, because the truth is that person is already feeling a level of condemnation.
Hold your head up high. This is our time.
All right, Jade, welcome to the Women of Joy Show.
Hey, what's up? How are
So
you?
glad to have you. You have a new book that just came out, What No One Tells You About Money. And when did that come out? It was just recently, right?
Yeah, it published January 6th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
And is this your first book, second book?
This is actually my third
book. That's exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
Very fun. So what made you want to talk about emotion and money now?
This really came out of my own journey with my husband paying off almost $500,000 of debt. It took us 7.5 years to do that. And through that period, I really learned firsthand that money really does have 3 parts to it. A lot of us get hung up on the first 2, which we know, like math. Yes, numbers. It's very important with money. And even the behavior, you know, people say things like, you know, get on a budget or to do certain behaviors in order to win. But what Sam and I really learned is that there's a third component that honestly has the ability to affect all of the other 2, and that's emotions. Your emotions are a huge driver in what you will or will not do when it comes to money.
And that is why when we were talking about this season and just shame and how shame, you have heard our theme verse is based out of just wanting to be radiant, but that we have to deal with our shame in order to be really all that God has called us to be. And so as we're processing our shame, money is a part of that. Like, you can't act like it's not. We all deal with it. We all have to manage it, or it manages us. And so what relationship have you seen shame have with money?
Well, money touches every area of our life. I mean, that's the key component. It's going to touch your relationship with your spouse. Obviously, it's going to affect your relationships with your kids. It's going to affect your work relationship and how you view your career, your boss, your interpersonal relationships there, obviously your spiritual life. So we know that that's true, with money. And obviously with shame, it can be far-reaching, right? The way I like to break it down, and I say this in the book, when we talk about it specifically with money, usually it kind of starts out with that top layer, kind of like that high layer of regret. You know, we've all experienced, buyer's remorse, or just that first layer where it's like, like I shouldn't have bought that thing at Costco. I came for 3 things and I bought that 4th thing that I just really didn't need, right? And it's just kind of that, why did I do that? Next layer, when we feel the guilt with money, that is where we say, my decision, the mistake I made is no longer just affecting me. Maybe it's affecting my sister. Maybe it's affecting my spouse, my kids, right? And that's when it feels really bad because what I did is now having a negative effect on other people. Shame really reaches that fever pitch where it's no longer a mistake I made that's affecting someone, but now we're starting to wear that mistake as an identity. And it's, I'm the mistake, I'm the problem, I'm the bad thing.
We're talking about in the Bible study how Curtis Thompson says that shame is associated with who you are, guilt is what you did. And so that feels so realistic to money to me, because it's like you can screw up with money, but then it becomes a part of who you are. So in thinking about you and your husband, I love in the book, like you actually hand wrote out your budget and your debts that you had initially when you guys first got married. And my husband went to Carnegie Mellon, and so I also married student loan debt as you did. And I had my own stuff. I kind of laughed because I had an Express credit card, and you talk about that in the book too. Like I felt so human in reading that, and just every young couple deals with that. Like you can't not have to have that conversation, but we didn't have it. It sounds like y'all didn't have it as to how much debt you actually had until you got married.
Absolutely. And the truth is you're two separate people before you've come together and you've made your own laundry list of mistakes. And so, coming together, that is tough. And when you experience, whether it's guilt or if it's gone into shame, like, the first thing you go into is like that isolation. Like, I want to protect this. I don't want anybody to know what's going on. I'm not going to share it. And it can feel very, very isolating. And you can kind of, before you know it, you've kind of put up walls towards the people that you love the most because you really don't want them to see the fullness of the mistakes that you've made.
Have you seen couples on the Ramsey show where they've been married a long time and they literally don't know what the other,
It's all the time. Probably every show, there's at least one or two calls where there's a scenario where we call it financial infidelity. This idea that they've spent money, they've racked up debt, or they just have this big financial secret that they haven't told their spouse. And a lot of times that comes from not combining money. So there was never full transparency, and that's just been allowed to go and go and go. And then you look up 10, 12 years later, in some cases, it could be like 20 years later, and this big secret comes out. And a lot of times that starts from the very beginning. When you first get married, right? You do want to have these conversations, but they're tough to have. And a lot of times it's not just one conversation, right? You don't just sit down and one day tell your spouse every single thing they've ever wanted to know about you. It is a series of conversations, but because they're uncomfortable, we never start the series.
No.
And, unfortunately, we do get a lot of calls where it's tough.
And I think normalizing here, you referenced your husband didn't even know some of his debt. Mine didn't either. I mean, I didn't understand. I mean, I laugh now because you look back and you're like, gosh, the $1,000 credit card limit that like ended up messing me up so much in the end, right? But there's no shame in not knowing. Like, you just have to start knowing. So what do you tell people if they have no clue how much debt they actually have?
Yeah, you've just got to lay out the numbers. And so in the book, there's actually a worksheet where you go through and you list out, because again, you would be shocked when I ask people, hey, how much do you earn? I'm not even asking their debt. I just say, hey, how much do you make? It's kind of like, somewhere around, X amount of dollars. So taking the first step today for somebody listening who goes, Jade, I do feel guilt. And most of my guilt is I just don't know my numbers. If you can list out today your income, if you get paid biweekly, what it is for the 15th and what it is for the 1st, right? The exact number, log onto your whatever and look it up.
Figure it out.
And then for your debts, do the same thing. Log on to the account and get the full number. What's the full balance of, that Expedition or that Tahoe or whatever car you drive? What's the monthly payment? Go through, look at your student loans. What's the full balance? And when we see it, a lot of times we avoid it because we just feel like it's going to be too much. But what I find is when people really look at the numbers, they actually feel a sense of relief that they know, okay, now I know what it is. And then right after that is when they feel a oh crap moment of, I know what it is, but oh crap.
Reality sets in and you're like, this is going to take forever. Yeah, but it's true. There's just a sense of relief in knowing, okay, this is what I have that I've got to get over and pay off. But now there seems to be a sense too of like, well, I just don't have to pay that. Do you hear that sometimes too?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot going on. And so in the book, when I'm talking about all the different emotions, anger is actually one of them because there's so many things that are outside of our control. And anger gives us, it feels like it gives us an excuse not to have to deal with it. Right? Well, student loans, back in the day, Joe Biden said he was going to pay off my student loans, so I don't have to touch that. And then, so we can blame it on administrations. We can blame it on our parents. Well, they took out the student loan. Shouldn't they be the one to pay it? And, credit cards and the works, it's very easy to look for some external force and say, well, it's their fault. And if we can put the blame on someone else, then now, we're free and clear. We don't have to deal with it. But emotionally, that's just not true, right? We still feel the
biblical weight. Like, we should own our debt and pay it off. Yeah, so
that's right.
Very much feels like something that we're supposed to do. And if you don't ever pay it off, then I don't know. I just can't. But I had just had a conversation with he's 28-year-old, and we were talking about this, and he said, I just don't plan to pay it off. And I was like, how do you not plan? Anyway, and he showed me there are ways, apparently, but that's not healthy. And then you're never going to be able to buy a house or do any of the things that you want to do. And so it's just not
It's
right.
short-sighted.
It's short-sighted. As you were walking through paying off, how much did you and your husband pay off?
460,000. Yeah.
So much. That's incredible. Over the span of how many years?
7.5 years is the time it took from like, we're serious about this until like
it was done.
Screaming debt free. Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you guys not put shame on each other during that process? Or you? How did that?
We didn't. We did not put shame on each other. And honestly, I'll say at this point, I think that was just a level of grace that I think God gave me and gave him. Most of the debt at that time came from my husband's side. And it was mostly student loans, like we said. And I don't know if it was just the way I was raised or what, but from the very beginning, I just viewed us as, oh, what's your debt's my debt. What's my money's your money. Like I wanted such a good relationship. I wanted such a good marriage that I knew early on, we can't let this come between us. We have to take each other as we are. And I hate to give myself credit for that. I like to just call it like dumb love. Like I just didn't know any better. Yeah. And I didn't. And I do remember that hitting him in such a way of how can you be okay with this? And that really bothered him. How can you be okay with this? This is like stunting our growth. This is holding us back. And I just, like I said, I don't know if it was just being young, but when you're young, you don't care. You'll sleep on an air mattress. You'll eat peanut butter and jelly as long as you're with the person you love, like, you know, come what may. And I'm just grateful for that because it did give us grace to get through it. And for him, the shame was still there. And the challenge it presented to me was getting through that wall because that's the hard part. And so having to really push through that a lot and go, hey, like, I'm not judging you. I'm not your enemy. The enemy is debt. And we have to join forces to gang up against that. And that's the thing I find myself telling couples a lot is you have to remember what the battle is against. And if you make it against each other, well, then the enemy is winning, however you want to look at that. But in this case, the thief is the debt. So we have to make sure that we keep that square in our minds so we understand like what we're up against.
And celebrating the wins, wouldn't you say? I mean, as we paid off different student loans and things, we always celebrated in some type of way because I at least needed the win. Looking at women who come to Women of Joy, like our audience, 90% of them we've studied are married. And so recognizing, like, as we're talking about this shame, but if they don't know how to start a conversation with their husband about money, what do you recommend?
I always recommend coming at it as a point of, I want to feel closer to you. Like this is an intimacy play. I don't want anything to be between us. I'm starting to feel distance. I want full transparency. When we form the conversation like that, it's kind of hard to get mad, right? Versus coming at the conversation saying, well, you're not telling me what you're spending money on. Suddenly it's very accusatory. That wall that was probably already there just got like this much thicker, right? So really coming at it from a heart place and like an aspiration for the relationship versus you did this, I did this, you didn't do that, I did. Right. Do you see what I'm saying? So no accusations, because the truth is that person is already feeling a level of condemnation and we're trying, the goal should be to lift that. And I talk about that in the book, you know, emotions are really meant to be transient and they're just a normal part of life and they pass through us and we go, oh, I was feeling sad at that moment and then I was feeling happy, right? But the problem is when they get stuck. And we find that a lot with something that was supposed to be just a quick regret. It was supposed to be a moment of like guilt, which is a better way to say it, is just a quick conviction, right? And then it was supposed to pass through us. We were supposed to learn the lesson and move on. But that didn't happen. It hung out longer than it was supposed to. And now it's this condemnation. And if as a spouse, we come at our partner, like pushing that same button, they're going to shut down. And so we've got to be kind of a soft place to be able to have that conversation and say, hey, I think that we could really work on transparency. I want to be closer. And I don't want you to think, do you see what I'm saying? I don't want you to experience any shame coming from me. We're both trying to do the best we can. And I just think that goes a long way.
What about for women who aren't working outside of the home? Have you seen that be harder?
I think so. When, guilt and shame, they can make us question our place.
Exactly.
And our confidence to be able to say, I actually have a say in this. I can actually contribute. I'm smart and I have wisdom in areas, right? If you make a decision and it turns out bad, or it turns into a mistake, or maybe you just make an outright bad choice, the question then becomes, well, how can they trust my judgment again? I wouldn't even trust my judgment. And so we start to back away from conversations that we really should be participating in wholeheartedly. And I do see that a lot with women. A mistake or a perceived mistake paired with, well, I'm not really contributing financially anyway, makes them back away from the whole financial conversation. When the truth is, if you're a stay-at-home mom, that is a financial contribution. That is a major. I mean, you could set up and do the math on what it would take to pay somebody to do what you do.
My friend just said that to me this last Sunday at church, actually. She said when they did their life insurance, they added up what her husband would have to spend in order to hire someone to do everything that she did. And she said it completely changed her view on her value and her worth, because she realized how much she actually was contributing. So maybe women need to do that math.
They do that. I'm worth like $90,000 a year here. Like, this is pretty big. Yeah. It's a huge mental play for people to understand that. And it's not to say that your value is like a net worth thing, but if we are talking about a financial value, heck yeah, you're adding to that equation. And even if for some reason you don't like looking at it that way, you're still in partnership with your spouse, which means you still have a say in what's going on. And it should still be something that's done as a combined effort and talked about as such.
When thinking about just the ability for Christians and not wanting to talk about money, the goal, I mean, of everything that Dave Ramsey has put into the world is to be able to give more in the end, right? And so getting to that point to where you're financially stable enough to be able to contribute back into the kingdom and what that looks like. And so it's not a bad thing to have money or to talk about it, but the church gets really weird about it at times.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that comes from. I'll be honest. I mean, it definitely is, depending on your background and depending on where you come from, it can be kind of a tough subject. But in my mind, it's like, well, if you got it, my pastor used to say, if you got it and it's good, it's from God. So wonderful, like use it for that purpose. Yeah, that's a hot button topic. I don't know if I want to touch it.
I know, right? My grandparents, they're both deceased because they would die if I said this and they were alive, and they had enough. They never had a ton of money, but every year they upped their percentage of giving 1%. And so by the time they passed away, they were giving 40% of their income.
Oh, wow.
Away. And nobody ever knew. My dad never told me until they passed away, but just it made me realize they had everything they needed and they still gave. And that was just such a huge impression on my life from how they lived theirs. But it was never about them, right? And that feels like so much of money, especially even in marriage, we can make it about us and what I want. I can, right? I want to go shopping. I want to take the trip.
Yeah.
We went to Disney World this past November, and it was crazy expensive.
It's outlandish. I love the mouse just like anybody else, but man.
But we said we're not going into debt to go to Disney World. And so that was a whole, and I'll be honest, we were walking around and there are people that love it, Disney people. It was fun. It's not something I want to do every year. But my daughter got to cheer in the parade. But as we're walking around, we're like, we could be in Paris right now. We could be in Italy. We could be, because it just costs so much money to be there. But it was so concerning too, because people are walking around. And I think someone from Ramsey did a video, I think like an Instagram live, talking to people who had put the whole trip on a credit card.
Oh, yeah.
Like they just...
Normal.
Yes.
Totally normal.
So much debt to be able to have this fun. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't be able to ride these rides and enjoy it. But that level of oblivion, how do you get people to snap out of that? Like, what does it take usually for someone to get out of that funk and realize like, okay, this is serious. I actually need to pay this debt off.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different for everybody, but it usually is some sort of kind of like catastrophic moment. We're a couple and now my wife's pregnant, and it kind of makes you go, oh crap, like I gotta think about the future. Or a lot of times it's a diagnosis, or a lot of times it is just an extremely embarrassing financial moment that's like, I never want to be in this situation again. So everybody has that catalyst that's like, this is it. Like in the book, I remember talking about, oh gosh, I had creditors calling me, you know, if you don't pay the bill, 1-800-PAY-ME calls. And they were just calling me nonstop all day. It was like every time I looked at my phone, it was buzzing and I would, you know, flip it on the other side and it just got to a fever pitch. And I'm in the car with my husband and it rings for like, I don't know, the 50th time that day. And I just was like, that's it. Like, pull the car over. And he's like, what is happening right now? You know? And I just had it. I said, we have got to get this fixed. They're not calling you. They're calling me. This is causing a problem. I'm going to like start resenting you because I'm the one getting the calls. Like, and from there, we just had this long conversation, literally in the parking lot of a bank is where he pulled over. And it was that moment that we finally got really clear on what we need to be doing, what it needs to look like, what's the right way to do this. And sometimes it just takes that moment of like you breaking down to have that moment of clarity and go, all right, we got to fix this.
But you said something so important. You said to him, I'm going to start to resent you.
Yeah.
I'm afraid so many women get to the point where they're already so resentful toward their spouse before they ever have the conversation. And so I hope this challenges them, like you said, just to start and say, I want us to be closer. I want us to be more intimate. This is how we can do that. Because it is, truly.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I'm going to say this, but I don't want to confuse anybody. So my colleague, Dr. John Deloney, he would say, choose guilt over resentment. And I say that in the way of sometimes, and I talk about this in the book, there's a guilt cycle, a guilty cycle that we have. And it's this feeling of, I know something's wrong and I know I need to fix it. But if I implement the solution, I'm afraid it's going to cause like just a discomfort for people. I don't want to inconvenience anybody. You know, I know we need a smaller house. We need to downsize, but I don't want my kids to share a room, right? And you feel guilty about the fact that your kids might have to share a room, or you feel guilty that you might pull back on travel sports, right? You feel the solution makes you feel a level of guilt, but also the problem is making you feel a level of guilt, right? And so as a result, we don't implement the solution. And now we're back where we started. I feel bad. And I know I need to change something, right? And a lot of times we don't have these conversations with our spouse because we're like, I don't want to make my husband feel guilty that he doesn't make enough money. But the truth is I'm feeling the strain and we need to do something, but you don't have the conversation. And so the choose guilt over resentment, that's kind of where it comes in is choose the solution. You might think that you're going to feel guilty about what that solution entails. But the truth is once you start implementing it, that was just a false fear. And once it starts being put into place, you actually feel great. And you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did this because if I hadn't, I would have felt resentment on down the line.
That's really good. And you bring up the kids point with that. And that's such a hard... You have 2 kids, right?
I have 2. Okay. Yeah, 5 and 7.
Okay. Mine are 12, 13, and 14 as of today. Yeah, they're expensive. How do you talk to people about just what you said? Like the travel teams that making decisions. I've heard so many times from friends, like, I just don't want my kids to have to suffer for the financial choices that I've made. Yeah. What do you say?
Well, first off, I stepped very lightly because the truth is when Sam and I were doing our debt-free journey, we didn't have children yet. And I try really hard to tell people that the things I've done. And I try not to get too preachy and telling people things that honestly I've not had to deal with because then it's like, well, Jade, what do you know? And I really frame it like this. I think that you're an adult and you get to decide what a priority is. And it's kind of like when we were all kids, it would be like on your honor. Like it's the honor system. So you can look at your budget and go, okay, truthfully, are we doing travel baseball? Are we doing taekwondo? Are we doing kids dance? Are we doing, tutoring? How many things are on that kind of like children's list? And can we cut some of them? Because chances are you probably can. And then there comes the whole conversation of like, are you really just trying to outsource all your time with them? Maybe you need to bring them home a little bit more and maybe they pick one sport, right? And I'm just thinking that that's derived from the way I grew up. My parents were like, pick one, And so when it was, separate leagues and you had to pay, we had to pick one. But then once we got to join the school teams, we could do a couple more because it's not as expensive. But those are conversations I think that when you get once you've laid out the income and you've laid out the debt and you've started having conversations with your spouse, now we can start to go, okay, what makes sense? Because this is a debt, this is a mess that we're cleaning up. Maybe Junior shouldn't have to feel like it's his problem, right? And I think that most people can make that choice.
And there are parents that put the guilt of their financial struggles onto their kids, and that's not fair either at all.
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I get it, and I think kids are resilient, don't get me wrong. And I think that if you frame up something in the correct way and say, hey, for a short stretch, like for the next 8 months, mom and dad, we are pulling the strings tight, and guys, you're going to feel it. But I promise you at the end of 8 months, we're all going to feel a lot better, right? Framing something up like that, and here's a way that you can help, here's a way you can get involved. Here, to your point, here are the things that we're going to do to celebrate and kind of create some excitement and momentum around it. Yes, I think especially with kids your age, they might can get behind that. But with younger kids, like when you've got little tots and, you know, crawlers and things, like they don't care. No. They do not know the difference. You could give them a plastic bag for their birthday and they would just be happy squishing that thing around. So,
but gratitude and teaching gratitude, it's hard. It's very, very hard and very real.
Yeah, it is. That's something that with a 5 and 7-year-old, I'm working on that a lot. And my friend, my colleague, Ken Coleman, he told me this and I thought it was good advice. So I told him, I said, it was around Christmas time. And I said, my kids, they've got a lot of stuff. And I'm trying to actually pull back and teach them that Christmas is not about how many gifts you can get. It really is the exact opposite. And he said to me, and I don't think he would mind me sharing this. He goes, Jade, you're exactly right. He said, when my kids were younger, because his kids are all about to be out of the house. He said, when my kids were younger, we told them that they would get 3 gifts. And we would give them 3 gifts that were equal coolness. You know, you can't get them a book and then a bike, right? Like 3 amazing gifts. He said, and all 3 of my kids opened up their 3 gifts. And then we said, okay, great. Now you get to choose 1 gift that you're going to give away. And they had to choose 1 gift. And not only did they give them away, but once they decided, okay, I'll give away my new scooter, they went to the children's hospital and had to choose a kid to give. And I was like weeping when he told me this. And I was like, that feels so strong. Like that feels so, and he goes, Jade, he goes, it's better if you let the situation break their heart instead of you being the one that breaks their heart.
That's so good.
Let the let them perceive, oh my gosh, this kid is my age and he's in the hospital. Oh, now I get it. He goes, you telling them, they'll never get it. But when they see it, so that was some of the best advice I ever got on teaching.
So good. Yeah. We gave up Christmas. I mean, we were just buying stuff that we were already buying throughout the year. And so we minimized, probably 3 years ago, we started doing a trip every year instead of giving major gifts.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Because the kids getting older, we just wanted to have more time together.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun. Like we did a ski trip. And we all talked at dinner about the people we met on the ski trails that day. You know, it just gave a lot of time for more conversation and not more crap that we had to fill in our house.
Well, did you see that meme? It was going around. I think it was viral. The mom was driving and her daughter was in the backseat and she's like, hey, do you remember what you got for Christmas last year? And it's a teenage daughter and she's like, and she's thinking, she's like, I don't know. She goes, really? Do you remember what you got for your birthday? And she's like, I don't remember. Then the mom asks her, where'd we go on vacation? And she says, we went to the beach. It was awesome. We ate here and we did this. And she remembered the trip. And it was just such a good lesson on experiences over stuff and like creating memories.
No, I haven't seen that, but that makes me feel good about our decision. I mean, it's really been fun. Like it's made that time of year more fun. It's made it less complicated, all the things. But yeah, so thinking about going back to shame a little bit and in parenting, when you can't give your kids the things that you feel they deserve. For women that maybe have their kids are grown and they look back and they're like, man, I couldn't give them the nice car when they turn 16. Or, I mean, it's just our focus gets off, right? But then not having debt, how do you get people to pull away where they see the big picture of what they're leaving to their kids even after they're gone?
You know, I always think about it in the way of how I grew up. You know, I grew up, my parents probably made fine money I mean, I think about what their jobs were and I was like, yeah, they probably made fine money, but they never, we always felt like it was tight. And so we never had like the nicest shoes or like a million outfits, or it was like, you got one church dress, you get one new pair of shoes a year. You know, like we were raised as though money were tight. And the truth is we all turned out fabulous. And sometimes you just have to look back and go, well, did you have a brand new car at age 16? I don't think you did. Did you grow up in a sprawling house? No, your house was probably 1,400 square feet, just like the rest of us. And you probably shared a room with your 2 other sisters. You know what I'm saying? At least my age group, I'm 42. I mean, we always had, we always shared rooms. We always had hand-me-down clothes. We always had a smaller house. You know, we brought our lunch. You know, my mom packed a lunch in a brown paper bag, you know what I mean? And we all turned out fine. If nothing else, we became resourceful and we wanted to, we understood like, hey, if you want something, you have to work hard to get it. And I think that the way the world is now, we are marketed to in different ways, maybe not more than we used to be, but in different ways. It's on our phone. We can look at it at any time. And I think that because of that, we do create this world of you should have this, 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 and that.
So as people are building their own financial confidence, right, and coming out of a place of denial and shame and all the feelings that they've had, when they're starting to feel confident, how do we get that anchored in truth and not in guilt, not in fear? What is your recommendation for that?
Yeah, so having it anchored in truth is really exactly just that. And I talk about this in the chapter of fear, but it rings true for guilt and shame too. It really is replacing your thoughts. I mean, it's the whole renewing your mind thing. You're finding that thing that wasn't true. And in the case of shame, maybe it's, oh, I'm terrible with money, right? And it's replacing that with something that's actually true. I can do all things through Christ. Like that is the truth. One of the scriptures I talk about in the book when it specifically comes to guilt and shame is 1 John 1:9, where it's like, hey, you know, no matter what, I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not going to attempt to quote scripture because it's terrible. But it's basically like, if you confess your sin, like he's faithful and just to forgive you. And the thing is, debt is not even a sin. Like that's the thing. When I think about that scripture, I go, all right, he's like faithful and just to forgive me of everything I've ever done wrong just by me confessing it. How much more to just confess something that I wish I hadn't have done? Do you know what I'm saying? And so when I frame it that way, I go, oh, whatever guilt or shame that I was harboring around this was really just me inflating that for far too long. I need to let this go. And so that's really helped me to do that. And I think it can help other folks to do that too. And once you've done that, then it's all about just setting yourself up to win. Right? Just like those daily practices, that's like, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, have some quiet time every day and remind myself of what's true. I'm going to have like a budgeting app that's going to help, right? I'm going to have that budgeting app. I'm going to sit down with my spouse and just do those practical things. I'm going to set up some milestones that can encourage me when I've, you know, once I've paid off a certain amount of debt, now we get to celebrate in this way. And those are really the things that keep you going.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time we sat down. We've been married 16 years. And the first time we sat down early on and figured out how much we made, and we're like, oh, we make more money than we thought we did. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't had those conversations, you don't know, which is bizarre, but you're just spending and living. And yeah, but as you gain that confidence, it allows you to move to a different level, right? Yeah. And just the way you can live and the freedom that you can walk in.
You can be intentional, like very intentional.
Yeah. Looking at your number, right, when you say $460,000, I love in the book, first of all, you worked for Royal Caribbean, which we love at Women of Joy because that's where we go on our cruise. But you didn't just pay it off. Like as I'm reading the book, I'm going, okay, I know she didn't pay off this debt just with doing that. And you got really innovative, right? Because some people will look at that one number and go, I can't do that. That's not how much money I make. But you've got to get scrappy and you've got to get really innovative, right? To be able to pay it off.
Absolutely. I tell folks all the time, when you look at debt, there's usually one of two issues, if not both. It's either a spending problem, like too much money is going out the door every single month, or it's an income problem. I just don't make enough money, or it's both. My income is a little low and I'm overspending, right? So knowing that is kind of like, okay, light bulb moment. Then when we look at income, if we say, okay, you know, I do have a bit of an income problem, that's also grouped into two parts. You can have what I would call a core income problem, which is my main job just doesn't make enough money to fit my lifestyle in, Nashville, Tennessee, or wherever I live. So you could have a core income problem, or you could say, hey, my core income's pretty good, but because I have this debt to pay off and I want to go quickly, I need some like ancillary income coming in. So some sort of a side hustle. And that is another form of income. And so with my husband and I, it was both. Like our core income wasn't high enough and we weren't doing any side hustles. So for core income, we're like, okay, we're in entertainment. What we were doing had a pretty decent ceiling as far as income, but because our debt was so high, we needed that ceiling to be super high. And for us, the only way to do that was to kind of create a business and create a job that we did not have a ceiling. And so I like to tell folks, when it comes to core income, just be willing to embrace a bit of a longer timeline. Whether it's you starting a business, that takes time to be profitable. Or even if it's saying, hey, I'm in one field, I need to go to another field. It takes time to get certifications. It takes time to get other education levels. It takes time. Maybe you have to move to another part of the country to pursue something. So just be willing to understand that that's not going to happen overnight, or even in 5 months. That could be a 2 or 3 year play, or in our case, it did develop over the course of 7 years. But the side hustle piece, any of that ancillary income, hey, you can start driving for Uber tomorrow. You can start taking care of pets immediately.
Any of the things. But that money then has to go toward getting you out of the situation you're in, and not your next vacation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that then comes the point, of sticking to the promise you made for yourself.
And that's easier said than done. But there's so much freedom as you start to chunk it away, then it gets easier to continue to do it.
It does. When you see that number go down, it's very motivating.
But like you said, reframing your thoughts and allowing God to transform your mind, that is what really sets you up for success.
It is. And it's something that, again, time. I cannot emphasize enough that these things take time. No one is suggesting that it's going to be a light switch and like, yesterday I was feeling guilty and today I'm feeling perfectly fine. My husband, he used to have this, he still has it, our mirror above our vanity in the bathroom. He puts these affirmations. Some of them are scriptures. Some of them are just true statements. And he sees them every day. He used to say them out loud. I don't know if he still does. If he does, it's probably not while I'm in there. But it's just a reminder of what is now true. And that helps so much. I mean, whether you look at it from a truly a neuroscience perspective, which is like creating like new neural pathways, or you look at it of a spiritual perspective of just, hey, truth, darkness can't overcome the truth. So if you just say it over and over, it is going to take up more space. Either way you want to frame it, it works, and we should practice it.
So another huge issue for anyone in money, I mean, we'll say specifically women, and I love you're the first person really to put so much emotion into the conversation around money. And there's not been a lot of people to do that. As we were talking about, this really is the first book to do that. We need that because we as women especially have so many emotions, and we talked about that early on. The problem also, though, is we start and we stop, right? We get excited. In January, like we're in March now, aren't we? Yes. And so like some people are getting to the end of quarter one and they're like, yeah, I'm not being as disciplined as I was in January. How do you talk to someone that is doing that?
I think a lot of it has to do with what's the nature of the holdup, right?
Yeah.
So I talk to folks. We used to do monthly webinars, and people would come in and we give them free advice and things like that. And I was noticing a lot of people were actually feeling shame around or guilt around the fact that it was taking them longer than it should, and I say should in quotes, to pay off their debt. And if I dug further, it was like, well, we had a baby, and then my grandmother, we had to take care of her because she broke her hip. And they're naming all of these like major moments in life that truthfully take precedent over money. And so I have to remind people of that. I'm like, hey, if your spouse lost a job, it is okay if you pushed pause on your debt snowball. If you were sick, if you had a baby, if the baby was in the NICU, like all these things that are huge factors in life, I have to remind people, I'm like, hey, actually paying off debt was not the priority. You did the right thing. And so that's thing one, is knowing, hey, is this something that could cause me to slow down? And then there's the other things that is kind of the complete opposite end of the spectrum, which is, well, my extended family always takes the trip to Disney and we wanted to go too. And my mother-in-law wanted us to go, so we didn't say no. And they're just spouting off this long list to where I'm like, stop. You get to decide your priorities. And at the end of the day, that's it. You get to decide, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And I tell folks all the time, everything's going to fight to be the number one priority. Everything, all the time. But if you don't step in and say, I get to choose, then those things will just kind of happen. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, we were supposed to be like $10,000 less debt by now. And it's somehow we have like a little bit more debt. What happened? It's like, well, you let that trip step in and you let this and that step in and you were too tired to cook and all those things. And so it's just us being aware. And one of the things I talk about in the book is having those that daily time that's just you and it's quiet time to reset, refocus, and remind yourself, if you have a specific goal, now's the time to be reminding yourself of that and putting that in the forefront of your brain. It's not just with money. If you said, hey, today, maybe your goal was I'm going to go for a walk every single day. If you just let the day happen and you never take that time, it's not going to happen. But if you sit down and part of your quiet time is you're looking in your notebook saying, okay, what were the things I said I was going to do today? Okay, yes, I have to take a walk. Oh, that's right. I'm going to the grocery store today. I got to remember, don't go over budget, right? Something as simple as that goes such a long way.
Very much so. I know for me too, I'm not going to put it on anyone else. Maybe it's just us, but we can overshoot the runway in our budget, right? We make a budget and it's not realistic. Like we're going to have to grab that meal after the basketball game.
Right.
After we bought groceries for the week, and so then you can beat yourself up over, hey, I messed up my budget. It's not even worth it anymore. Right.
Yeah.
But you've got to start back. Like you can't just live in that space of, okay, I'm not going to look at that anymore. That's not the answer. You've got to continually be reviewing it and going, okay, I messed this up over here. What can I take this from within my budget?
Yeah, that's right. I tell people all the time, like a good budget, detailed, realistic, flexible. The flexibility is that part where it's, to your point, I forgot to put on here that Wednesdays are the night that, we're in softball till 9:00. We're going to have to go through drive-through. Okay, but I learned that lesson. So for next budget, I know.
Right.
And that's the thing is like, we can learn from our mistakes for crying out loud. And that's totally fine. Nobody's asking for perfection. But I do find, you brought up a good point. There is, and I don't know if it might be a personality type. I'm certainly like this, all or nothing.
Oh, I am too.
It's
slightly competitive.
Yes, it's very competitive. It's like, if you didn't, I don't know, working out in the wintertime, if you didn't sweat, was it even a workout? Yes, it counts. I do think we have to challenge ourselves to go, hey, consistency is not consistency is about showing up and doing your best. And when you talk about the idea of your best, it's not the same actions every day. Your best looks different every day depending on what things are thrown your way. And that's the truth.
That is the truth. And copays and all the things that come into play, just tweak your budget and start again.
That's
Don't
right.
beat yourself up.
That's right. It's like you can't control everything, but you can learn from the things that happen and go, okay, note to self, copays are real. I'm going to add that in here. And there's a good chance.
That's what I'll say about your book too. There's so much grace to feel and to be and to make your own pathway with money. And not all money books are like that, right? Like some of them are just very, very specific, but you allow people to be who they are in reading your book. And so I really thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Part of that is because, we filter money. I said it briefly earlier. Money touches every area of our life and we filter it through our prior experiences.
We do.
So I could say a very simple piece of advice such as, hey, if you're getting out of debt, go out to eat less, right? And one person could look at that piece of advice and say, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I do spend a lot of money on DoorDash, or I do spend a lot of money at Chick-fil-A. Another person who maybe grew up in a home where there was food insecurity, or grew up in a home with a single mom or single dad where the only meals they got were free lunch at school, If I tell them something like that, it hits a deeper nerve because they go, you don't understand how hard I've worked just to be able to go through the drive-through. How dare you, right? And we have to have space for those folks and go, okay, let's talk, because there's an emotional barrier there, rightfully so. I am not, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and so in the book, I talk a lot about, you can have a very good reason for the feelings that you have. And yes, but does it hit a point where a very good reason becomes a bad excuse? You got to be careful. If you're not working through it, 100% a good reason becomes a bad excuse.
No, that's so good. We actually had a conversation with our own marriage recently, and I won't get into the details, but it was so interesting in the end because it came back to something like you said, where there was just something within it that was triggering that neither of us would have known about the other. And once we realized that, I could be like, oh, this makes so much more sense. And then you can move forward. But that goes back to what we said earlier about vulnerability and all the things. And the heart of it being, have a conversation. Like all of this comes back to having hard sometimes, but vulnerable conversation.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to ask you a question we ask everyone that's on the show. What is something right now that's bringing you unexpected joy in this season of your life?
Okay, unexpected joy. I'll tell you, and my friends probably hate it. So I have done a couple of things that have really, I just feel like technology, if you're not careful, it will just run your life. And so I did a couple of things that are very small, but have had a huge impact and bring me a lot of joy. I stopped using my phone as an alarm clock, and I bought an alarm clock. And I did that because when my phone was my alarm clock, I'd pick it up to turn the alarm off. And then immediately you're on your phone, whether it's checking an email. And that is just no way to start the day. And so the alarm clock has brought me a lot of joy. And in that, I implemented another thing, which is my phone. If I get a text, I wait 1 hour to reply. And it it makes me go, I don't have to react. I don't have to be wondering, what did they say? What do they want? I have to be available at all times. And it has just brought me so much peace. Like, I can look at a text and go, oh, so-and-so texts me. Just set it down.
That's so good.
And it's good for me. It's good for them. It teaches them like access. Like, hey, there's boundaries
here. Do you go back
here.
and reply though? Because I'm the worst.
I try to. Now that there's a feature where you can mark it as new, I try to do that. But honestly, if I forget to reply, that's okay. They can text me again later.
Yep. If they really need you, they'll find you.
That's right. And that has brought me like a level of 90s joy. Like, I can't even take me back to answering machines.
That's fun. We talked about alarm clocks. We need to do that. I got my kids alarm clocks, and that was a good transition. But well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For being with us. This was really fun.
It was my pleasure.
And so insightful.
Oh, thank you.
For our audience. So I hope that they'll read your book and learn more and find freedom. Like, there really is freedom from the shame.
Yeah, that's my hope.
So thank you.
Well, thank you so much.